Lunch. What'd you pack for me? Look, for the last time, I'm getting plenty of fiber. Dear Tim and Moby, I thought that air was mostly made up of oxygen, but my brother just told me that it's mostly nitrogen. Who's right? Sincerely, Eloise. Well, you can definitely find both elements in the atmosphere, but oxygen makes up only 21% of it, while nitrogen accounts for a whopping 78%. Hey, we need nitrogen just as much as oxygen. It's a key component of DNA, the body's genetic program for life, and of all proteins, the building blocks of cells. Well, unlike oxygen, we can't just breathe in nitrogen and put it straight to work in our bodies. We need nitrogen in a different form, and we get it from food. Well, it's all part of a process called the nitrogen cycle. See, nitrogen is constantly moving in a big circle from the air to the ground to plants, animals, and humans, and back again. First, nitrogen from the atmosphere falls to the ground thanks to precipitation, snow, rain, hail, that sort of thing. Once it's in the soil, the nitrogen crosses paths with a special type of bacteria. These bacteria often live on the roots of plants in a mutually beneficial relationship. The plants give the bacteria a cozy home, and the bacteria give the plants, well, let's take a closer look. The bacteria latch onto a nitrogen molecule, break it into two separate atoms, and combine each with hydrogen to form a compound called ammonia. Just like that, the gaseous nitrogen has been fixed or attached to other elements to form compounds that cells can use. Right, that process is called nitrogen fixation. Well, actually, ammonia itself is pretty toxic, so before it can be used, it needs to be turned into something else. For this, a different type of bacteria grabs onto each ammonia molecule and combines it with oxygen. This step is called nitrification, and it creates a compound that plants can safely absorb through their roots. Plants use these compounds to build proteins. Animals, in turn, get these nitrogen-based goodies by eating plants and other animals. Well, no, this stuff doesn't stay with us forever, since all living things have to emit waste. When plants and animals die, their bodies decay. The proteins and other nitrogen compounds inside them return to the soil. A third type of bacteria breaks these substances back down to ammonia. This process is called ammonification. This new ammonia can go right back into the nitrification step. Well, plants don't absorb all of the substances created at that step. Some of it is snagged by a fourth kind of bacteria. These guys steal the oxygen atoms from those compounds, leaving plain old nitrogen gas as a byproduct. This has the opposite effect of nitrification, so we call this process denitrification. The leftover nitrogen is free to return to the atmosphere, completing the nitrogen cycle. Yeah, human activity can have a huge impact on the nitrogen cycle. Fertilizers, smoke, and sewage from factories, not to mention the wastes of farm animals, all add millions of tons of extra nitrogen to the environment. That throws the nitrogen cycle out of balance, leading to the loss of oxygen in lakes and rivers, soil that won't grow anything, and polluted or acid rain. If we want to keep the delicate cycle of nitrogen moving, we have to take steps to protect our environment. Using alternative energy sources instead of burning fossil fuels is a big help. So is cutting back on the use of artificial fertilizers and properly cleaning up after our livestock.
Yeah, I guess that's a start.
Okay, 7th graders, here are your notes for your nitrogen cycle video. Hopefully you got a chance to watch the brain pop before you actually started taking these notes. So you're gonna just fill in the notes as I go along with them, through them with you here. So animals are able to obtain nitrogen through eating plants and animals. Plants have a much harder time obtaining nitrogen as they only absorb nitrogen when it is fixed nitrogen. Because plants and animals can't actually use free nitrogen, so it has to get fixed. And the only way animals can get that fixed nitrogen is by eating the plants that were able to fix nitrogen, okay? So nitrogen can be fixed doing a process called nitrogen fixation. And that's the process of taking free nitrogen, which is like the N2 that we were talking about, and then turning it into like NH4 or NO3 or NO4. So you're going to change it and make it into those particular nitrogen compounds. Okay? And then there's two ways you can actually fix this nitrogen. The first one is lightning. Okay, that has a chemical quality to it that actually changes free nitrogen in the atmosphere and fixes it. And there's something called nitrogen fixing bacteria. If you remember reading in the article, these bacteria live on the nodules, which are those little bumps that are on the roots of peas, beans, legumes, soybeans, alfalfa, clovers. So nitrogen is a necessary component, which means you need it for life, as plants need it to grow and reproduce to create something called DNA. And that's the chemical structures or chemical instructions that tell you who you are. Plants need it, animals need it. So even in the word DNA, you can see the N in it, that's the nitrogen in it. The speed of decomposition is the key to keeping the nitrogen cycle moving, as the majority of the fixed nitrogen comes from bacteria breaking down dead matter and feces. So again, you'll have the nitrogen in our organisms such as bacteria living in decomposition. And the way you make decomposition go faster is the warmer the area is, the faster decomposition will occur. Okay? So next section is there are 5 main parts to the process of the nitrogen cycle. The first main part is fixation, and then we've already talked about it. This is the first step of the process of making nitrogen usable by plants. Here, bacteria change free nitrogen into fixed nitrogen. Called ammonium. The next step is actually called assimilation. I'm sorry, ammonification. And this is how plants get nitrogen. They absorb the, so this is the part of the process where they absorb the nitrates from the soil into the roots. The nitrogen gets used in amino acids, nucleotides, and chlorophyll. I was actually right. This needs to change. This is not ammonification. This is assimilation. Okay. The third one, the process by which blank gets changed into blank. This is called denitrification. This is the process by which fixed nitrogen gets changed into free nitrogen. We're going backwards by denitrifying bacteria. And then these nitrogen are then absorbed by the plants. The fourth step, okay, this is called ammonification. And this is the part of the decaying process. When a plant or animal dies, decomposers, like fungi and bacteria, turn nitrogen back in ammonium, so it's re-entered in the nitrogen cycle. And finally, this is ammonification. I'm sorry, this is nitrification, where extra nitrates are put back into the soil. Okay. Oops. Or put back into the air. As free nitrogen. by denitrifying bacteria. Okay, so those are your notes. Complete those and then submit them, and you're all done for this part of the activity.